Black History Month, we celebrate Annie Malone, one of America's first black millionaires. Malone was born August 9, 1869 in Metropolis, Illinois. Despite never graduating from high school, Malone developed a product to straighten black women's hair while minimizing.
That's where Ali got his courage from. He watched Jack Johnson documentary. He said, "I'm nothing compared to Jack Johnson." Listen. In 1908, you got lynched for looking at white women, reckless eyeballing. He married 3 of them. I don't put myself in the league of Jack Johnson. Jack Johnson's fighting in the ring, and there's 75,000 people saying, "I'm gonna kill you if you hurt him." You know, this is what they're saying. This is what they're saying in the
while he's trying to
he's
fight.
fighting. And know what he's doing? Oh, and he's beating the guy. Boom, boom, boom. Oh, he's so beautiful. I'm gonna send him to you real nice. Boom, boom. And he's talking to the guy's wife. "How you doing, Miss Jeffries?" And then boom, 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 beat the guy that. And if you ever watch him fight, he's looking at the crowd, he's always smiling because they're cursing at him like a dog.
In 1905, Alonzo Herndon started an investment and insurance company to service black Atlantans. It became one of the most successful black-owned businesses in the country.
Well, today, the Atlanta Life Insurance Company is still thriving on Auburn Avenue.
A trumpet and drum led a parade down Beale Street tonight to celebrate what would have been Church's 180th birthday. The entrepreneur is known for many creations across Memphis, including the city's first black-owned bank.
The abolition of slavery in 1865 marked a turning point in American history, but it did not dismantle the deep-rooted economic and social barriers facing newly freed African Americans. Throughout Reconstruction and into the Jim Crow era, black communities endured relentless discrimination, segregation, and violence, all of which made the pursuit of wealth and opportunity an uphill battle. Yet, despite these daunting conditions, a remarkable group of black entrepreneurs rose to prominence in the decades that followed. From real estate and beauty to insurance, business, and entertainment, these pioneers carved out spaces for success in an economy largely closed to them. By the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they had become some of the first black millionaires in the United States. Their achievements were about more than just personal fortune. These individuals reinvested in their communities, supported education and civil rights, and defied the era's racist stereotypes. Their stories highlight not only the harsh realities of post-slavery America, but also the power of resilience, innovation, and legacy in the face of systemic oppression.
A birthday bash on Beale Street tonight for the South's first black millionaire, Robert Church. A trumpet and drum led a parade down Beale Street tonight to celebrate what would have been Church's 180th birthday. The entrepreneur is known for many creations across Memphis, including the city's first black-owned bank.
Notable action at City Council. Members passed a resolution naming Robert Church the father of Memphis. Church is known as the first black millionaire in the U.S. and for putting up money to save the city after the yellow fever epidemic. The entrepreneur is also credited for many creations across Memphis, including the city's first black-owned bank.
Born into slavery in Mississippi, Robert Reed Church Sr. would rise to become the first black millionaire in Memphis and one of the wealthiest African Americans in the post-Civil War South. The son of a white steamboat captain and an enslaved seamstress, Church began his working life on riverboats along the Mississippi River. After the Civil War, he chose to settle in Memphis, where he launched a successful string of businesses, including a saloon, a restaurant, and a downtown hotel. Despite being shot and nearly killed during the violent Memphis race riot of 1866, Church remained in the city and saw opportunity where others saw disaster. When a devastating yellow fever epidemic struck in 1878 and property values plummeted, Church began buying up land across Memphis. These investments would form the foundation of a real estate empire. In 1899, Church made a landmark move by purchasing 20 acres along Beale Street, where he developed Church Park and Auditorium, the first major recreational and cultural center in the country owned and operated by an African American. The 2,000-seat venue, valued at $100,000 at the time, hosted national figures such as Booker T. Washington and President Theodore Roosevelt, becoming a vibrant centerpiece for Black civic life in Memphis. Church's success extended far beyond real estate. Through his wealth, he supported Black education, funded local schools, and contributed to numerous community development initiatives. His influence helped shape Beale Street into a thriving entertainment district and symbol of Black prosperity. Known for his sharp business instincts and deep civic commitment, Robert Church Sr. became not only a millionaire, but a respected leader and philanthropist in the Jim Crow South, a powerful example of resilience, enterprise, and vision in the face of systemic racism.
Continue to honor Black History Month. Today, we shed the spotlight on Madam C.J. Walker. She's considered one of the first self-made Black women entrepreneurs. Both she and her daughter were also big supporters of the arts and were key supporters of the Harlem Renaissance. Eyewitness News reporter Michelle Charlesworth gives us a look inside Walker's historic mansion in Irvington, New York.
That's Madam C.J. Walker at the wheel. She drove her own expensive cars, plural, started her own hair care company, employed thousands of women, built her own mansion with every amenity. This is her mansion in Irvington, New York.
Madam C.J. Walker, born Sarah Breedlove in 1867 on a Louisiana plantation, rose from deep poverty to become America's first female self-made millionaire. Orphaned as a child and working in cotton fields by age 10, she developed a scalp condition that led her to experiment with homemade hair remedies. When one formula worked, it changed not only her life, but an entire industry. In 1905, she began selling her scalp and hair growth products directly to Black women, first throughout the South, then across the country. Her business, the Madam C.J. Walker Manufacturing Company, grew rapidly despite Jim Crow laws and racial discrimination. She trained and employed thousands of Black women, known as Walker agents, empowering them with financial independence and professional skills. Through bold marketing and grassroots sales tactics, Walker built a multi-million-dollar brand focused on a community ignored by mainstream beauty companies. By 1917, she was officially recognized as the first American woman to become a self-made millionaire. Walker used her wealth to uplift others. Her estate, Villa Lawaro, became a gathering place for civil rights leaders and artists, and she donated heavily to organizations like the NAACP. More than just a business icon, Madam C.J. Walker turned haircare into a path to empowerment, proving that economic success could be a tool for social change.
For Blair's Black History Moment. Ladies, you either remember the smell of this burning on the stove as a child, or like me, you still use it to keep that mane sleek and smooth. We all know as a Black woman, her hair is her crown and glory. And Annie Malone, who patented the hot comb and spent time creating and pouring into the St. Louis community, made her mark here, becoming one of the first Black self-made millionaires.
All right, the 111th annual Annie Malone May Day Parade is going virtual this Sunday. This is a long-standing St. Louis tradition that will be back as the outdoor event you know.
During this Black History Month, we celebrate Annie Malone, one of America's first Black millionaires. Malone was born August 9, 1869 in Metropolis, Illinois. Despite never graduating from high school, Malone developed a product to straighten Black women's hair while minimizing damage. After her move to St. Louis, Malone founded several locations of Pearl Beauty College. She also donated to the St. Louis Colored Orphans Home, later renamed Annie Malone Children and Family Services, which now helps abused and neglected children find emergency help and forever families.
Annie Turnbo Malone was a pioneering entrepreneur whose beauty products built an empire and opened doors for thousands of Black women. Born in Illinois in 1869, Malone had a talent for chemistry and used it to develop a revolutionary hair straightener for African American women, a market entirely ignored by mainstream beauty companies. When traditional stores refused to carry her products, Malone and her team went door to door, giving live demonstrations. Business took off after the 1904 St. Louis World's Fair, where her Poro company gained national attention. By the end of World War I, Malone was a millionaire and one of the most successful black women in America. She headquartered her operations in St. Louis, where she opened Poro College in 1918, a cosmetology school and training center that educated thousands of black women not only in beauty, but in business and self-reliance. Her company became one of the first national enterprises owned by a black woman. Beyond business, Malone was a major philanthropist. She gave generously to churches, orphanages, and black-led relief efforts, often donating land and money to community causes. Her success went beyond profit. She built opportunity and uplifted lives, leaving behind a powerful legacy of entrepreneurship and service.
In 1898, John Merrick and 6 other investors gathered to create the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company. The firm allowed blacks in the Durham area for the first time to purchase life insurance. It eventually evolved to provide other crucial financial services that helped foster the economic prosperity of blacks in the city. Shortly after its founding and incorporation, the firm became the world's largest Negro insurance company and one of the most influential black businesses in history.
Born into slavery in 1859, John Henry Merrick rose to become one of the South's most influential black businessmen. After the Civil War, he hustled for every dollar, shining shoes, carrying bricks, and eventually becoming a barber. By the 1880s, he moved to Durham, North Carolina, and built a small barbershop empire that served both black and white customers. But Merrick saw a bigger need: financial services for black families. He began investing in Durham's Hayti district, a thriving black neighborhood, becoming one of its largest property owners by the 1890s. In 1898, with just $50 in capital, he co-founded the North Carolina Mutual Life Insurance Company. Soon after, he bought out his partners and became its president. Under his leadership, it grew into the largest black-owned insurance company in the United States, managing over $1 million in policies by 1918. Merrick didn't stop there. He helped found Mechanics and Farmers Bank and launched a black-owned newspaper, using his wealth to uplift others. His work turned Durham into a hub of black enterprise known as the City of the Black Wall Street. John Merrick's legacy is more than just business success. It's about building institutions that empowered his community in the face of segregation. He remains one of the earliest and most effective black millionaires of the post-slavery era.
In 1905, Alonzo Herndon started an investment and insurance company to service black Atlantans. It became one of the most successful black-owned businesses in the country.
Well, today, the Atlanta Life Insurance Company is still thriving on Auburn Avenue. And as Fox 5's Portia Bruner shows us, Atlanta high school students are now learning some valuable lessons from the legacy of a former slave turned millionaire.
Restoration work began at the Herndon Home Museum today in Atlanta. The National Trust for Historic Preservation's Hope Crew program, along with the Greening Youth Foundation, are hoping to bring new life to this historic and beautiful home. Crews work to preserve work on the wooden rear porch and metal railing. The museum is the home of Atlanta's first black millionaire.
Born into slavery in Georgia in 1858, Alonzo Herndon started life with nothing. After the Civil War, he set out on foot with just $11 in his pocket. He learned the barber trade and eventually opened high-end barbershops in Atlanta that catered to wealthy white clients and brought in serious money. His success in grooming turned him into Atlanta's first black millionaire. But Herndon wasn't content with barbering alone. In 1905, he used his profits to found the Atlanta Life Insurance Company, then called Atlanta Family Life. Under his leadership, it became one of the most powerful Black-owned businesses in the country. Even through the Great Depression, Atlanta life stayed strong. Herndon also invested in real estate and helped fund schools, hospitals, and other institutions that served Atlanta's Black community. His rise from slavery to the boardroom made him a symbol of what was possible, even in the Jim Crow South. Herndon proved that with skill, vision, and relentless work, success could be built against the odds.
This morning, Miss Opal Lee is sharing the story of another Texas legend. You may not know the name William Madison McDonald, but you soon will. Here's our executive producer, Kenidra McDonald.
It was huge. It was the most magnificent thing in our neighborhood.
The story of Miss Opal Lee's neighbor in his mansion here on Terrell Avenue in Fort Worth, it almost sounds like a tall tale.
That house was a replica of the plantation house where he was raised.
But William Madison McDonald was very much real. He was the first Black millionaire in the state of Texas.
You can't talk about Black history in Fort Worth without telling the story of William McDonald, the first Black millionaire in Texas, and historian Jane Higgins says, a natural-born leader.
People were in awe of Mr. McDonald simply because of his brashness, his boldness.
At 18, McDonald worked as a school principal in Kaufman County. At 21, he joined the state's Republican Party, eventually becoming chairman. He joined forces with a railroad executive, the two of them brokering deals that helped McDonald get rich.
Born to formerly enslaved parents in 1866, William Gooseneck Bill McDonald rose to become one of the most powerful Black men in Texas. Starting as a school teacher, he quickly moved into politics and finance, building a legacy that blended economic strategy with civic influence. In 1906, McDonald founded the Fraternal Bank and Trust Company, Fort Worth's first Black-owned bank. He leveraged his longtime leadership role with the Prince Hall Masons to steer business into the bank, helping Black entrepreneurs get loans and build wealth when white-owned banks shut them out. His deep ties to fraternal organizations gave him both capital and credibility. McDonald was a master strategist. He supported schools, civic projects, and used his fortune to strengthen the Black and Tan Republican faction in Texas, positioning himself as a political kingmaker. By the early 1900s, he was considered the first Black millionaire in Texas. His life shows how financial independence, fraternal unity, and political savvy could be used together to break barriers and build lasting influence in the segregated South.
But here this 85-year-old house, you're gonna knock it down and just move it off like it was never there. That really hurts.
Abraham Lewis founded American Beach, a safe haven for African-American beachgoers during segregation. Built in 1938, his home was the first constructed on American Beach, a historical marker placed to signify that it's a beach for everyone.
Abraham Lincoln Lewis was Florida's first African-American millionaire, a self-made businessman who turned hard work into lasting impact. Lewis was Florida's first African-American millionaire, a self-made businessman who turned hard work into lasting impact. Born in 1865, Lewis started young, first as a laborer, then as the owner of Jacksonville's first Black-owned shoe store. In 1901, he co-founded the Afro-American Life Insurance Company, Florida's first Black-owned insurance firm. Under his leadership, the company grew into a major institution, providing financial services and employment to Black residents during an era of deep segregation. With the wealth he built, Lewis reinvested in his community. In 1935, he co-founded American Beach, a popular resort for Black families banned from whites-only destinations. He also funded scholarships, supported civil rights groups, and used his business as a platform for uplift. Abraham Lincoln Lewis didn't just become Florida's first Black millionaire, he created opportunity for others and laid the foundation for economic empowerment in the state's black communities.
Between the 1870s and the beginning of World War I, black pioneers settled more than 100 all-black towns in the West, each with the goal of economic independence. Among the most well-known was a black district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, known by its residents as Greenwood.
If we were to go back in time to 1920 and walk up and down Greenwood Avenue, one thing that would probably strike us is the absolute variety of businesses. The numbers are astonishing. 30 restaurants, 45 groceries and meat markets. There were dry goods stores, milliners, photography studio, dental offices. Greenwood is no longer called Greenwood. It's now known as Black Wall Street.
Ottaway W. Gurley was the driving force behind Tulsa's Greenwood district, famously known as Black Wall Street. Born in Alabama in 1867, Gurley began as a store owner before moving to Tulsa during the 1906 oil boom. There, he bought 40 acres of land, which he sold exclusively to black families, a bold move aimed at building a thriving, self-sustaining black community. Gurley developed the area with homes, shops, and a hotel, eventually owning more than 100 properties. By 1914, his wealth had grown to roughly $150,000, equivalent to about $3 million today, and by 1921, his net worth was estimated between $500,000 and $1 million. Thanks to Gurley's vision and investments, Greenwood blossomed into a hub of black excellence, complete with banks, schools, theaters, and professional offices. He became known as one of the wealthiest black men in America. But on May 31, 1921, the Tulsa Race Massacre destroyed nearly everything. Gurley lost his hotel and nearly $200,000 in assets as white mobs burned Greenwood to the ground. Still, his legacy endures as the man who laid the foundation for one of the most successful black communities in American history.
Jack Johnson defends his title once more against Jim Jeffries. Reno, 4th of July, 1910.
One of the great events in sports history is just 24 hours away as we look at downtown Reno, Nevada on July 3rd, 1910. Jeffries retired undefeated in 1904, over 6 years ago. The city of Reno is in a frenzy as 15,000 fight fans swarm into the little town. This is the fight the entire boxing world has been waiting for. A clash between the two men who are ranked as the greatest heavyweight champions of all time.
The film of his fight against Canadian Tommy Burns was stopped before Johnson's knockout punch. Many argue it was done to shield viewers from the sight of a black man beating a white man. Johnson generated just as much, if not more, publicity outside the boxing ring. He refused to hide his relationships with white women, which many found outrageous in the US at a time of widespread racial segregation. It would prove to be his undoing. In 1912, Chicago police arrested Johnson for violating the Mann Act. The federal legislation banned the transportation of women across state borders for immoral purposes, a law intended to stop young girls from being lured into prostitution. But federal agents were determined to use it against Johnson in a prosecution many saw as punishment for a high-profile black man having a relationship with a white woman. Belle Schreiber testified against him, a white prostitute who had also been Johnson's girlfriend on and off for 4 years. Johnson pleaded not guilty but was convicted and sentenced to 1 year and 1 day in prison.
Johnson is training 17 miles away at Rushcutters Bay. Even the sedate Australian sports writers have been pulling out all of the stops in describing Johnson's workouts throughout his training period. There has been a general consensus of opinion that Johnson combines perfect defense and balance with an offensive punching attack which leaves little to be desired in a professional fighter. The police stopped the motion picture cameras and entered the ring to halt this very one-sided fight. Jack Johnson becomes heavyweight champion of the world, December 26, 1908.
Today, as president, I've issued an executive grant of clemency, a full pardon, posthumously, to John Arthur Jack Johnson. He was known as Jack Johnson, the first African-American heavyweight champion of the world, a truly great fighter. They say he violated the Mann Act, and he had a conviction that occurred during a period of tremendous racial tension in the United States more than a century ago. Johnson served 10 months in federal prison for what many view as a racially motivated injustice. He was treated very rough.
Jack Johnson wasn't a businessman in the conventional sense, but as the first black world heavyweight boxing champion, he shattered racial barriers and redefined success for black athletes. From 1908 to 1915, Johnson dominated the ring and earned massive prize purses, often surpassing the earnings of white champions. He flaunted his wealth, driving luxury cars, wearing diamonds, and refusing to conform to the racist expectations of the Jim Crow era. His lifestyle and confidence enraged white America, but it sent a clear message. A black man could be rich, famous, and unapologetically bold. Historian Lawrence Levine wrote that Johnson ruptured role after role set aside for Negroes in American society. Though legal troubles and exile eventually drained much of his fortune, at his peak, Johnson's wealth and visibility were unmatched among black entertainers. More than just a sports figure, Jack Johnson became a cultural icon, a symbol of resistance, self-determination, and black excellence at a time when all three were dangerous. His life proved that even in a deeply racist society, a black man could rise, shine, and force the world to take notice. Mary Ellen Pleasant, often called the mother of human rights in California, was a trailblazing entrepreneur and civil rights activist who turned personal hardship into power. Born into slavery around 1814, she escaped bondage and made her way to San Francisco during the gold rush. Starting as a cook, she listened closely to the business talk of wealthy patrons and used what she learned to make smart investments in real estate, railroads, restaurants, and boarding houses. Over time, Pleasant built an immense fortune, widely recognized as the first self-made African-American millionaire. But she didn't keep her wealth to herself. She quietly funneled money into abolitionist causes, supported the Underground Railroad, and even helped fund John Brown's failed raid on Harper's Ferry. In 1866, Pleasant made legal history by suing a San Francisco streetcar company after being denied entry because of her race. Her case reached the California Supreme Court, which ultimately banned segregation on streetcars, though it reversed the financial judgment in her favor. Beyond her public victories, Pleasant acted as a one-woman social agency. She offered housing, education, job training, and guidance to newly freed African Americans, helping them build new lives. By the 1870s, she was one of California's wealthiest residents. Despite her success, Pleasant faced constant racism and resistance. But her legacy endures as a powerful example of how economic independence can be a force for justice. She didn't just accumulate wealth, she used it to fight for freedom. In the generations following slavery, a powerful group of African American trailblazers defied the limits placed on them by a deeply racist society. Entrepreneurs like Mary Ellen Pleasant, Robert Church, Madam C.J. Walker, and Alonzo Herndon didn't just build wealth, they built industries. From beauty and insurance to land development and entertainment, they created businesses that served black communities shut out from mainstream markets. Despite facing Jim Crow laws, systemic exclusion, and violent backlash, they reinvested in their people. They funded schools, hospitals, newspapers, and civil rights causes, laying the foundation for future generations to organize, resist, and thrive. Their legacy isn't just measured in dollars. It's measured in institutions, opportunity, and the reshaping of what was possible for Black America. These were more than millionaires. They were builders of a new reality, one where Black excellence, ownership, and leadership challenged the very systems designed to hold them back.